we have an AR-15 that shoots 7.62 by 39, AKA the AK round. Try saying that 5 times fast. But yeah, so it has a 7.62 barrel. What's very interesting about this is this lower receiver here, because it still uses standard AK-47 magazines. It looks kind of funny without it. Now, I already know what you're thinking. You're probably like, well, dude, but why? What's the purpose? And we'll get into that here in a second. And I also know you're probably thinking, well, hey, that looks pretty cool, but how does it run? Is it reliable? Is it not reliable? We're gonna find that out too. Now, historically speaking, shooting 7.62 by 39 out of AR platform is doable, but in the past when companies have tried to make it happen, there's always a lot of issues, mainly pertaining to cycling. For some reason, the AK round doesn't really care for the AR platform very much, but it looks like that Palmetto State Armory may have solved the problem here, but I guess that's to be determined. I guess you could say this is for the AR-15 guy that wants to shoot 7.62 by 39, not so much for the AK guy that just wants to shoot it out of an AR-15. We're gonna dive up close here in a second, and then we're gonna go over all the shooting footage to see if we had any issues with this guy and see how it runs. For those of you who are brand new to this channel, if you see anything in this video that you wanna pick up or you wanna check the price on, follow the first link in the video description if you're watching this on YouTube. It takes you to a separate page where so that'll be there for you at your leisure if that's something you're into, but if not, no worries. So let's dive up close, take a look at this bad boy, and then we're gonna go over all the shooting footage, and I'm gonna give you my final opinion. Knowing what I know now, would I buy this or not? All right, guys, so here we are up close with the PSA KS-47 pistol. This one is the 10.5-inch barrel variant, but they also have other sizes as well, which we'll talk about here in a little while. I briefly mentioned this earlier, but there have been many other companies to come out with an AR platform that shoots a 7.62 by 39. Some of them have been pretty decent, but when they were decent, they were really expensive. If they were on the more affordable side, they typically had a lot of cycling and reliability issues, which is why this gun was essentially created, to solve that problem of affordability and reliability. So let's take this apart so we can go over the differences between what this is like and what a standard AR-15 is like. Split that apart. The main difference from the trigger guard forward, so that you can obviously see the trigger guard is different. Here is a standard AR-15 that has the interchangeable trigger guards. And this one is a squared off look versus a more oval shaped look on the ARs. Also, you're gonna see from the front of the trigger guard forward where the majority of the differences are. Over here, we got a mag release, and then we have a mag well. We also have a bolt catch on this side, so we can release the bolt. Here's a top view of it. So you can see from the front of the trigger back, they're essentially the same thing. Let me release that trigger so you can see that right here. Very fascinating indeed. Now up here is where it looks kind of wonky when you don't have a magazine in it, and that's because there's no mag well here. It's essentially just a piece of metal that wraps around. The way the mag works is this is your mag release right here. That you just push it forward to release your mags. And the way they lock into place is this little ledge right here, and I'll put a link below where you can find all this stuff. It comes up here to attach. That hooks on right up here in the top. Hooks on, and then that little metal piece goes right up in there, and it's securely locked into place. Now, when the upper receiver is attached, there's no wobble, which I'll show you in a second. Then to release it, you simply pull that forward, and then your mags come out like so. On the trigger that they have in here, it has a standard AR-15 trigger. This looks to be the nickel-coated one that Palmetto State Armory makes. It's a mil-spec trigger, but the nickel coating does allow for a smoother trigger pull. So it's a slight upgrade from your standard mil-spec trigger. However, you can polish any mil-spec trigger that you want to, so not a huge deal. You got your standard safety right here. So essentially, from this portion to here, I'm assuming, and we're going to test this in the near future, you could put in any AR-15 trigger that you want. You could also change it out for a different safety. You could also change out the different grip. However, although it looks like we can put a bunch of different AR-15 triggers in it, it does say on the Palmetto State Armory website that one-piece drop-in triggers will not function in it correctly because of the way that this magazine release is designed. It says one-piece drop-ins will not function. You need to get stuff that has it's a multi-piece system, so like the Geisleys or things like that. So keep that in mind if we're going to upgrade the trigger in it. So that's very fascinating. One thing that I did really appreciate right here is they actually staked the castle nut. You know, sometimes when you buy more affordable ARs or rifles in general, if they have a castle nut, a lot of times they don't stake it if they're affordable. But I'm happy to see that they staked it not only here, but they also staked it here. So let's look at the upper and some of the internals and compare them to a standard AR. So up in here is our upper. If you guys are familiar with most AR-15s, they have what's called M4 feed ramps. And these are the feed ramps down here that are actually cut into the upper receiver. So it looks like they're using a standard upper receiver, but with a 7.62 by 39 AR barrel put into it. So that's pretty interesting. Right here on the handguard, they have, usually on an AR-15, we see 2 bolts that hold the handguard in place. On here, they have 3 of them that are very much Loctited into place, so they're not gonna come off unless you really want to. On the gas block up here, they also have these Loctited on, and from what I understand, the barrel isn't dimpled, so that could possibly move on you. However, I have a bunch of uppers and stuff that aren't dimpled, and I've never had an issue with them, but saying that, they're also not as powerful as a 7.62 by 39. Now, one thing I really enjoy about this upper receiver is not only is it M-LOK, but it has a continuation of the rail here, a nice little place to grab right here, and then a continuation of the rail up here. So you can put a front sight post, or if you have a scope on it and your scope mount wants to come out to here, you have a place to attach it. That's very nice. So let's look at this KS-47, what they're calling the PSA hybrid bolt carrier group. So let's compare the bolt carriers. Here is the Palmetto State Armory KS-47 hybrid bolt carrier, and on the bottom is a standard AR-15 bolt carrier group. We can look at the top here. Our gas keys are identical. The gas key is staked, and it looks like it's staked very well in the front. This back one is staked really nicely on this side, but over here, looks like they kind of missed the mark. Will that affect anything? Time will tell. On the bolt face, they look pretty much the same. That's pretty crazy. On the sides here, you know, we have our bearing pads down here. So down here is where you'd put a lot of your oil. These are your friction points on each side. And on this one, it is the same thing. I like that they're smaller. That means you have less surface area, and less surface area means less friction, and less friction means less heat. That's kind of nice. On here as well, you can see a little bit of rubbing there, a little bit of rubbing here. Nothing insane. Now, one fascinating thing that I do notice that's different is on the left, we have the KS-47, and on the right, we have the AR-15. You'll notice that like right here, is a little bit of a cutout, and over here we don't have that cutout. I don't know what that means, but it's just something I noticed. Another thing I noticed is on the right I have the standard AR, and on the left I have the KS. On the KS, I've noticed that the firing pin, it peeks out a little bit further than the firing pin on the AR, and it also appears to be a little bit more pointy on the end. I don't know how well you can see that, but on my left is the KS, and on the right is the standard AR. So it seems that the striker, the firing pin, is not only a little bit longer, but the end of it is also just a little bit more pointy. Now, in regards to like the profile of it, you still got your serrations here for your forward assist. And then on the back, you can see it's a little bit like cubed, squared off back here. I don't know if they did that to save weight or to reduce friction, but otherwise it works really well. And it's kind of funny. I was just looking at their website right here, and it does say the bolt carrier group is designed to work with AK-47 magazines and features an extended firing pin. So what I noticed was most definitely correct. The carrier is made of a 8620 steel, which is a standard steel for the carriers. The gas keys attached with grade 8 bolts. Says they're properly staked, but like what I showed you up here, this one doesn't look quite right. The bolt is a nitride treated 9130 steel. I would rather see like a tool steel on there, but who knows? It does say for the magazine compatibilities. Now, I haven't tested all of these magazines. I've only tested the Magpul ones, but they got the Romanian stick magazines, the Romanian drum magazines, Chinese drums, Chinese sticks, Korean drum, Korean sticks, Yugoslavian sticks, Bulgarian sticks, Circle 10 sticks, Hungarian sticks, and Russian sticks. It says, aside from these, any other brand magazines are not guaranteed to work. So let's talk about this barrel right here. You can see the heavy profile nature and how thick that barrel is. Just look at the end of it there. This one's a 10.5 inch barrel, and it is a heavy profiled barrel. It's made out of 4150 steel, and it's nitrided. And also, when I was showing you those M4 feed ramps earlier, if you look down towards the bottom where the feed ramps are, you can see a huge cutout so that that big 7.62 round will feed properly. Very, very fascinating. Now you're probably wondering, well, hey, how the heck does it shoot? Now, because I got a pistol, I don't really test accuracy on pistol variants much at all. But that said, a lot of times what I look for is inaccuracy, whether it's a handgun or a AR/AK pistol type accuracy, but it hit exactly where I was pointing. If I was aiming at the head, it would hit the head, granted that I zeroed it correctly. Or if I aimed at the chest, it would hit the chest. For close quarters combat and stuff like that, or just going to the range and having fun, it seems to be fine. Now, if that ever shifts, I'll definitely make an update video on it. That way I could be like, sorry guys, I spoke too soon, something changed here. And so far it's running good, but let's talk about the pros and the cons of the KS-47. So for those of you who've seen my other videos, I have this whole build series here on this Palmetto State Armory AKM/AK-47, and I've done a lot of modifications to it. And if you haven't seen that build series, I'll have a link to the playlist in the video description so you can watch it later. But ultimately, there was a couple of things that I had a lot of problems with. One thing in particular that I had issues with on this gun is changing out to aftermarket triggers. Not only are they fairly complicated to perform, they are also very, very finicky. You gotta adjust the safety so it touches the trigger correctly. It's not like doing a trigger on an AR-15. A couple of other things that I don't particularly care for on the AK platform in general is the lack of a last round bolt hold open. So as you can see, I insert an empty mag. There's nothing to hold the bolt open. And that's something that occurs with pretty much all AKs. If I'm wrong about that, someone correct me down below, but I'm pretty sure that all AKs don't have a last round bolt hold open. And then the other thing that I don't really particularly care for on an AK is the way that the magazine release works. And there's nothing wrong with not having a last round bolt hold open, and there's nothing wrong with having to remove the magazine like this. The only reason I bring that up is it's just not something that I'm accustomed to, because I'm more accustomed to AR-15s because that's what I've primarily shot in the past few years. So it's not cons, they're just things I don't particularly care for with the platform. So with this one, essentially what happens is all of your manual of arms are the same as your standard AR-15. For example, you charge it the same exact way. Your safety is still right here where your thumb is. So if you're used to being at low ready and coming up and disengaging to safety, or being at high ready and then coming up and doing that, that's not going to be a problem for you. But what it does borrow from the AK-47 in regards to manual of arms is the way you release the magazine. It's identical to the AK-47, except I will say I do like this larger mag release paddle that they have on it. It's just a lot easier to get your hand on and then pull it out and then come back in with the new mag, lock it in, charge it, and then keep shooting. Another thing that it also shares with the AK-47 in regards to manual of arms is there's no last round bolt hold open, as you can see there. So if you are used to doing reloads with it and going bang, 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 the bolt's locked open, and just using your bolt release to make the bolt go home, that's not gonna happen with this. So it borrows characteristics from both the AR and the AK platform. I think that's good or bad, depending on who you are and what your preferences are. I say all that to say this. In my personal opinion, I like having a last round bolt hold open, and I like having a magazine release that's right here, and I like having a bolt release that's up here. So in my personal opinion, I think those are cons, but I don't know any other way that they could change it to integrate those things. I think it's just inherent to the style of the gun that it is. Now let's talk about the pros. Pro number one is I really enjoy this handguard right here. When I showed you this up close, I like that it has the continuation of a rail, and then it has a rail that continues out here for a front sight. But right here, it's recessed so that our thumbs can just wrap around it. Really easy to get out there and get a hold of this and just go bang, bang, bang. The next pro to it is I didn't have any issues with feeding or cycling, anything in regards to actually shooting the gun. It cycled every single round that I put through it. I think we're at 337 rounds right now. Tried to make sure that I kept up with that. I used like Tulamo and Wolf ammo, and it cycled just fine, which I was really kind of concerned about because I know with AKs, they'll usually cycle anything. ARs can sometimes be a little finicky when you're using cheap ammo, but this thing, it just ran everything that I put through it. it. Now, I did have one small issue when I first got this. In the very beginning, before you get it broken in, this mag well can be a little bit tight. So I have two different types of PMags here. I have one that has a metal tip, and I have one that has a plastic tip. I think this one is it's either a Gen 1 or a Gen 2, and then this one is a Gen 3. So in the beginning, on a brand new magazine and a brand new gun, when I would go to put the mag in, you see how this little mag release flaps? So I'd put it in, and that mag release wouldn't lock in the very beginning. But then once I forced it to lock and I started putting rounds through it, it started getting where they would come in and out just fine, and the mags wouldn't fall out. I think there was one time I shot it and the mag literally fell out. But then I got this mag here, the Gen 3 one, and because it's metal, it was a little bit more difficult to get it broken in. This mag release would come forwards, but it wouldn't come back like that. But after I put, I think about 6 mags through it, that worked itself out completely, and I never had another issue with it. The other pro about it is I like AR pistols in general, or in this case, an AR/AK pistol. So I like the small form factor. I like for, close quarters type things. It's not as heavy as you might think, although it's gonna be a little bit heavier than your standard 10.5-inch AR pistol, whether 300 blackout or 223, and that's due to the heavy profiling of the 7.62 by 39 barrel. The next pro that I like about it is this version actually comes with the SBA3 brace system that I absolutely love and adore. For those of you that are new to this type of stuff, if you make a short barreled rifle that's under 16 inches, it's considered an NFA item and you gotta pay a tax stamp. However, if you put what they call an arm brace on it in the beginning, then it's considered a pistol, and therefore you don't gotta get a tax stamp and get all the paperwork. However, in the past, most braces were always fixed. There was no adjustability to this, so SB Tactical figured out a way and got an approval letter from the ATF, so you could have a 5-position adjustable pistol brace that's super comfortable to shoot, just like so. I kept trying to find something wrong with this, aside from the manual of arms, which is a personal preference thing. I keep trying to find stuff that's wrong with it, and it just freaking works. Everything is really solid on it. There is no wobble between the upper and the lower receiver. It is solid as a rock. All right, so what about future modifications that I would want to do to the KS-47? Number one, we're gonna try some different triggers. Like I mentioned earlier, on the Palmetto State website, it does say that standard one-piece drop-in triggers will not function on this because of the nature of the design of the mag release. We're gonna try some, regular type triggers that aren't single piece. I think I have a Geisley that's been waiting to be installed into a gun. I might put that in. We'll try to go through some other triggers as well, just to see if we can find something that won't work, given that they're not the one-piece design. So I definitely wanna try out some different triggers. The next thing that I would definitely wanna upgrade is this charging handle. I'm not a fan of the standard mil-spec charging handles. I like extended latches. I especially like the big Radian ones. I'll put links to the ones I'm talking about. That way, if you want to look at them, you can check them out. But I just want a bigger charging handle just because it's just easier. I think the last upgrade that I'm going to do to it is a compensator. I think I'm going to get I think I might have a 7.62 by 39 compensator laying around actually. So, aside from the couple of little cons that I mentioned, everything is amazing on this. In fact, I kind of like this a little bit better than this. Not that this isn't a fun gun to shoot, but because I know AR-15s inside and out, and I don't know AKs, the familiarity of the AR platform here is just so much nicer to feel in my hands. And I felt like I was a lot better shooting this one than I was the AK just in general. So now let's get to the last part. What are these actually cost? Well, they have a few different variants that you can get. So with Palmetto State Armory, a lot of their stuff sells out super fast. And now when I say super fast, it sells out really quickly when they come in stock, but they do restock a whole lot. The downside is when their products go out of stock, I can't see the prices. I believe that this one that has the 10.5-inch barrel, the M-LOK handguard, and the SBA3 brace, I believe these are $6.99. But if you want a more affordable one, they do have some that are $5.99 that have like your standard A2 front sight and a plastic handguard, and some that come with a KAK brace instead of the adjustable SBA3 brace. With that said, for the additional $100, I'd much rather have a free floated barrel, an M-LOK handguard, and the SBA3 brace, because if I bought the other one that was $5.99, I would spend well over $100 just on the brace alone. That doesn't include the handguard and all that other crazy stuff. So I think this is the best bang for the buck for the pistol variants if you can find them in stock. Now they also have them in rifle format. So if you want a 16-inch barrel rifle and it has a Magpul stock on it, you can get that as well. I believe Mr. Guns and Gear did a review on the rifle variant and he had positive things to say about it as well. So knowing what I know now, I want more of these. I would definitely buy these. And just to kind of FYI, Palmetto State did send this to me to review. For those of you that don't know me, I don't care if something gets sent to me to do the review. If it sucks, I'm gonna tell everybody, and that's just how I roll. This one, most definitely in my experience, hasn't sucked. But with saying that, this is just my experience. I want you guys to go out and watch other people's videos and see what they think about it. See if someone else had a different experience than I did. Maybe they have a better perspective than I do. So don't take my word for it. If it is something you're interested in, follow the first link in the video description to go find the product links. But until next time, guys, I love you and you guys stay sexy.